Saturday, the 9th of May, 2026. After conditional thoughts on Taoism, my relative theory transcribes to a prediction of an external complication known as a PhD thesis. My striving for awareness of this theory has been brought forward by David Attenborough and concreted. There are many things to be discussed. First of all, the main point, awareness. Awareness of one's surrounding, awareness of the invisibility of the force of nature, also the calming of the mind to not let feelings transcribe action. There are many things which have to be unresolved through an analysis of the I Ching. The mind states which I am approaching are determined in an elemental ratio which is concluded by the nuclear trigrams of body and mind. They're separate yet connected. 3 lines representing an element. Say, for instance, today is the 9th. 9 being, wind above heaven. That would be the internal hexagram of the upper internal hexagram being fire of the mind, and lake being the body. Now, fire above lake is actually the hexagram named opposition. So you could have an internal opposition. It could bring forth a demonic spirit. It could be a realization or a meditation day where you discover your internal opposition. Or it just could be a fire mind which travels not so far and also needs conditioning and control. The lake body, in which I've found, is very susceptible to touch. Touching another human being is a very translucent and conjunction of 2 lakes touching, and their essence is transferred, or a magic power. I use the dates to determine, because I have a theory that each day is a different element in a 24-hour cycle. There's what is known as the eternal way, which cannot be spoken, which I believe to be the actual elements which are happening on the earth in a consecutive manner. So say if today there was fiery clouds, like the day I discovered the eternal way, and then lake feeling on the ground, that would be opposition. yet again. But the internal hexagrams would be different. If there was fire in the sky and lake below, or joy below, you would have a water mind. But you would also have a fire body. Now, fire and water form a form of toxin, I find. Almost demonic, could be considered an evil internal day. The body of fire might need special foods, which I think they used to transcribe in ancient times. Say, like, if your body is filled with fire and you ate a pot of rice, it might fuel the fire and keep you going all day. Or you could drink a bottle or two of wine and calm the fire body. Or it might be a good day for losing weight. And if the body's on fire, you burn fat. Now, as for the mind of water, it comes down to the 8 immortals. The wine cup immortals. The mind of water is a form of collective with certain entities controlling, much like that of the communication of water. Some entities can explain this. The great water divine dragons are probably the communicators on such a day. But the fire and water opposition, who's to say that the fire within the body isn't bubbling the water in the mind, which turns it to a sort of poison? And this is just one day. As there are 8 elements in the I Ching, imagine a complete heaven day where you have a heavenly body and a heavenly mind. That would be the 28th day, or the 43rd day, or the 44th day, or the 1st. These days would be great days for communicating with your fellow man or woman. Probably a good day to conceive. Also, the elements which transcribe each day are separated into 2 on the outside of the earth. So say if there was heaven above and fire below, like the 14th day, it might be a good day for the gods in heaven to look down upon a fiery earth. Sorry, the 13th day. A fiery earth. Could be a place of hell. Could be a place of analyzation for darkness. Either way, if it was windy, I'd say best to stay indoors. Fire winds would be the prime cause of old age. That's what I've found in my elemental studies of land transgression. Whereas if you were to climb the hill on that day, the 13th day, stand above the fire, would you be in a sort of heavenly realm? That would be determined by external feelings of the elements of the earth, such as wind and light. Also would be determined by a sociological amplitude. Say if there was a gathering on the hill of good people, would that be a good day to communicate, considering you've got the heavenly mind and the tree body? Or is it that the heavenly mind is bound to the tree body, and it's just your body is like a tree? Maybe you should stand still on that day. Or maybe because the tree is rooted in fire, it becomes like a native New Zealand tree, like a manuka branch, a sort of a fiery wood which can absorb fire. Either way, 13 isn't very prosperous in a few Asian countries. It also means fellowship with men. So maybe it is a good day for a discussion, such as in J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Fellowship with men is what it's called. There are other things to consider. The levels. On the level plane, there is, for instance, if it was, I don't know, the 10th day, and there was heaven above the lake, the three positive lines would determine the levels of the land. So if you were halfway up the hill, it could be negative because that's the top of the lake, and it's a receptive line of 2 dashes rather than a solid line. If you were halfway up the hill, it could be a very negative space, but you climb 10 more meters up and you hit the positive land. Now, after studying this theory of pure land, Taoist placement, the theory and the analyzation of your surroundings has a feeling, a positive or negative feeling. You become one with the thoughts, with nature, how it feels on your skin, very susceptible, like the woodland realm. Now, if this was the 10th day, you might say that there was joy below heaven. Could be a great day to have a gathering of sorts amongst the lake people. If there were lake people, they would be watched by heaven. It also means conduct, which could be a day to get things done, I guess. Conduct a meeting. The 2 positive lines on the bottom of the hexagram could be a good day to gather at the beach, being the lake represented by the water. I could go on and on about each day having different positive and negative aspects. To conclude this abundance of theories, what I like to call the Hebel Bibble Study School, Hebel being the hill, and Bibble being because it's biblical in proportion, would very much like to say that these theories are original in nature. From my own studies, they're not transcribed from any book. The I Ching does talk about the nuclear trigrams, but it doesn't talk about them being representative of the head and the body. This is something that I've originally come up with, and the levels could be related back to Pure Land Buddhism, I suppose, but who really knows? I haven't actually read about it anywhere. It's just a theory that I've come up with over the last 5 years as I've been studying the I Ching quite consistently, and after discovering the Eternal Way in 2017 at around April, or 2018 at around April, yeah. 17 or 18, not sure. I think it was 17. Anyway, the discovery, like I mentioned earlier, was to do with fire clouds. Now, when I was observing the sky, getting a suntan, the clouds were wielding. As the clouds wielded, they represented a fire shape and were burning. That got me thinking that if there was an element in the sky which turned the clouds to fire, and there were 2 elements in a day, and if I knew that there was fire in the sky, and I could sense what was surrounding me on Earth, then I could solve this and invent this new way, which I'm calling the Eternal Way. Which I did, and I determined that there was a joyous feeling on Earth, and I started on the 38th day. The next day, I thought, what if it moves in a consecutive order? And the next day is water above the mountain, which is obstruction. What if there was obstructionist things that happened that day? And I thought, right, water in the sky, and it began to rain. And the mountain was below. Maybe I could consider the mountain being the mountain, and there was no energy but water energy surrounding me. Or if I used the Hibble land skill of going below the mountain, if I was in a place with hills surrounding, I could determine whether I was below the mountain or I was amongst the water energy. And then after a few days it clicked that when the fire came back around and I could feel the tingling in the wind, I determined that it was a consecutive order. And I followed this path for the last 8 years, every day, without missing a day. And what's most amazing was when the first of the months collided with the heavenly day. There was a sun shower, a judgment call. In some books that sun shower is a sign of Judgment Day. I also saw this as quite a divine collision and started thinking about the Sothic cycles. The 720-year cycle, where it changes elements. Now, there are 5 elements in the star trigram found in the, which book is it in? It's Dictionary of Occult and Mysticism. Now, there are 5 elements moving in an order with arrows pointing from one to the other in this diagram. So say if Earth had just been, the Earth Sothic cycle had just been, then wouldn't this heavenly divine day of a collision possibly mark the next Sothic cycle? What if it turned to metal, and the beginning of the Sothic cycle was this divine collision day? This is my theory, which I'm pretty sure wouldn't come around that often. I don't know exactly, I haven't done the math, but 720 years? Well, I don't know, but if this were supposedly the age of Aquarius, or the age of metal, or the age of earth, or the age of wood, or the age of fire, what if the Stone Age was the age of fire? And after the age of fire became the age of earth. So if you went back 720 years from now, or 4 years ago since this divine collision, if you went back 720 years, you'd reach approximately 1200 AD. Now, if you go back another 720 years, you get the start of the Tang Dynasty. Now, the Tang Dynasty knew all about Taoism. They were rooted in it. So let's say at the end of the Tang Dynasty, it turned to fire, or during the Tang Dynasty it turned to fire. Before the fire was the trees, a heavenly place, which is the trees are representative of heaven on earth. So if that was the woodland realm, or the tree cycle before the fire, and then the fire reigned for 720 years to 1250 AD, and then it turned to earth with the invention of certain things in 1250 AD, around about, approximately. This is my theory of ancient Egyptian meets Chinese, and I also think that by studying such things, you become at one with nature, which is like a wizard would. As the I Ching is described by Westerners as a book of magic spells. By studying the I Ching, you're embracing wizardry. I'd like to conclude this 10-minute speech, which has not been rehearsed, which puts down my theory into a, how would you put it, vocalizing the theory of my study. Finally, the eternal way shall not be spoken. If this theory was to get out into the open, into the hands of the wrong countries, then they would wage war on certain days. They would be like, right, it's a fire day. Let's bomb them on this day. That's why the eternal way should not be spoken or shared. Therefore, I'm not going to reveal which day has aligned with which day of the month. I'm going to keep that a secret, and wish you all the best in your proceedings of longevity. Goodbye from Daniel J. Kelly. The end.